Today, we're going to talk about data centers. Now, I know these things are a hot topic amid everything else. The heat, water, prices, lack of homes, lack of childcare, you name it. But we do need to speak out about them. So who is the most qualified here to speak about and when necessary against these just enormous data centers that are affecting the heat, the water, the prices, the lack of homes, and more? It's a good question. And today I have a very special guest for you to hear from. Everybody across the country and across the world want more examples of fight and progress you can actually see and touch and feel. And in this second batch of conversations, in partnership with our best friends at Run for Something, we're going to give you exactly what you asked for. So not every conversation will be the same. Some, like today, will feature a single guest and others might feature two. But all of them are sourced from the Run for Something pipeline and graduating classes. These are truly our next generation of leaders and just in time. Today, we're going to talk to an awesome candidate who is running for their town council, who is hell-bent on attacking and helping people understand a huge issue in their own hometown. And listen, for all you know, that could be the same issue in yours soon enough. So you and I are going to find out together what they're working on and why, where they've made progress, where they have struggled in their candidacy, and how their exact tactics and strategies might be transferable to other schools or towns or cities like yours around this fine country. So if these conversations inspire you, you can do 2-3 things today, because it is not just these candidates' job to save us. We have to recruit and then elect them and then hold their feet to the fire and re-elect them should they deserve it. So after you listen to this, it's your turn. Number 1, find out what office you or some other amazing young person you love can run for at runforwhat.net. And 2, find and support incredible candidates endorsed by Run for Something and other amazing organizations we trust at whatcanido.earth, like the shirt says. And of course, please share these conversations. You guys said you needed this stuff. We need it. I need it. You need it. Many, many more people do as well. So please share it with someone who gets it. That's awesome. Let's go talk to Jackie. Jackie McGuire, welcome to the show. I see you have a keyboard in the background. Now I have questions about that too. This is all very exciting.
Yeah. This is my music studio.
Oh shit, you got a whole thing going on. All right. At any given moment you had to pick up one. Are you scratching? Are you hitting the keys, guitars? Like, what are we doing?
I am the least embarrassing on the bass.
What a great answer. I love that. Bass is awesome.
Yeah, it's hard to mess up bass. I also, though, this DJ controller is a DJ controller and a drum machine and a sample pad. So it's like all these different toys in one. So also very fun to play with.
Have you heard of...
I grew up singing.
Oh, that's exciting. I won't make you do it, but that's really exciting. That's for another show. Have you heard of, I'm really excited that this is already completely off the rails. The Orchid. I got one of these things from Telepathic Instruments.
No, what is it?
It's pretty cool. It's like a super dorky advanced chord generating synthesizer designed to help musicians of all levels find what's on their mind. We have one. It's super fun to carry around the house and mess around with. My kids are
That's awesome.
11, 12, and 13 and all really getting into music. And my version of telling them they can't have phones is to just buy them musical instruments. So
mine are 11, about to turn 13 and 14. So it sounds like we were making the same bad decisions at the same time.
Perfect. I don't know. I mean, there's, I think, worse decisions that can be made these days. But that's my version of fighting the fight, is like, here's a drum set. So all right,
same with ours. We already covered this is not going to be the summer of electronics. So took them to race go-karts yesterday, and they're all set up with arts and crafts projects and music stuff. And
are you guys already out of school?
Oh yeah. Arizona gets out of school the week before Memorial Day, which is crazy for me because I grew up on the East Coast, and on the East Coast we didn't get out of school until like the end of June. But here it's early because it gets so hot here that the schools don't want to pay air conditioning bills.
No, I get it. Yeah, we've got just about 2.5 weeks left. Same thing. It's gonna get warm. I get it. Well, that's exciting. Well, best of luck with all the arts and crafts and such. I get the same thing. I wrote like a for winter break, my kids, I wrote like a unsolicited code of rules about screens for the break, and they're like, "What is your deal, man? Like, why? Why does it have to be this way?" I was like, "I don't know what to tell you. Sorry. Enjoy
Yeah.
your crafts."
Yeah.
Anyways, all right, let's talk about this. You're speaking of screens. You are running for office in a very screen connected, chaotic moment. I'm in Virginia, which is the data center capital of the world. Apparently, super fun for everybody.
Yeah.
Dominion's about to get bought by next year. Like the whole thing is completely, complete chaos. So you're in Arizona there, where it's already pretty warm, and you're trying to do the thing. Tell us about yourself and the office you're running for.
Yeah, so I'm Jackie McGuire. I, by my day job, is as a research analyst for cybersecurity, AI, and then I picked up data centers. It's kind of been a really interesting journey. I never had ambitions to run for public office before. Like, I think I've made comments to my partner before about, like, oh, if more people like us ran for office, the world would be a better place, but nobody
Mm-hmm.
wants to run for office because it's such a painful process. And then end of last year, they started doing the scheduling public hearings on the data center project here. And I found out the size of the data center project here. And so ours is two buildings that are each going to be between 550 and 750 megawatts. So a total of up to 1.5 gigawatts. And to put that in context, we're this little tiny town of 60,000 people just north of Tucson. And 1.5 gigawatts is two-thirds of what the entire Tucson metropolitan area uses.
Yeah,
So
it's like the
we
Death
have
Star.
a yeah, and then I went to South Tucson a week and a half ago to be a subject matter expert at one of their town council meetings, and I told them, I was like, the average consumer space heater is 1,000 watts.
Mm-hmm.
So this is literally going to be the equivalent of putting somewhere between 1 and 1.5 million space heaters into two buildings and just running them. And the first law of thermodynamics says you can't create or destroy energy; you can only transfer it. And so every watt of power that goes into that building is turned into heat.
Mm-hmm.
And they do all these crazy things to try to deal with the heat to keep the building, below 115 degrees so that the chips don't melt. But realistically, when you live in a climate where it's already 113, 115 degrees, that's crazy. And so we're just starting. And my biggest issue here is some people I've talked to have this concept that data centers are what power your smartphone,
Mm-hmm.
and they're what make Google Docs work, and that's regular cloud computing. That is not, we've been doing regular cloud computing and regular what we call low density data centers for years. This is just an entirely different animal. And between the density of the technology, how many GPUs you're fitting in a rack, and the size of the projects, I don't want to be a guinea pig for a science experiment. I don't want my town to be a guinea pig for a science experiment. And the real issue that I see here is I spent 15 years in Wall Street before I decided to become a data scientist. And this is not a technology play, this is a real estate play. This is a whole bunch of private equity companies buying up as much land as they can and starting as many data center projects as they can because free money is easy to come by right now. So this is kind of what I saw coming down the road starting probably 18, 24 months ago is these large hyperscale data centers, the companies behind them stopped wanting to own them. So rather than building their own hyperscale data centers, they're setting up these private equity shell companies in conjunction with private equity companies, and then it doesn't show up as debt on the public company's balance sheet because they just made an equity investment in a private equity company. Then the private equity company takes on somewhere between 125 and 150% in basically mortgages of what it's actually going to cost to build the data center, saying, oh, but when it's finished, AI is going to be so in demand that it's going to be worth more. And so this is kind of like the worst parts of the dot-com bubble and the financial crisis. And I was a stockbroker during the financial crisis, so I have a little bit of PTSD from that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's those two things combined, right? And what we're seeing is that these companies are being very predatory, and they look for small towns like ours. They look for towns that make most of our tax base comes from construction tax and retail tax. We have a utility tax as well. Our utilities are cheap, land is cheap, and so and it's this kind of divide and conquer strategy where they're going after all of these little small towns where the governments really don't know enough to protect themselves. And
That's such a
so I
key.
started yeah, and I think you see this over and over and over, and then many times they have the government sign a non-disclosure agreement. So the government can't actually go out and seek help because they're now bound to secrecy. And it's funny because our vice mayor, who I'll be open is not my favorite person in the world, basically made a statement on social media last week that I showed up 2 years too late because a couple weeks before the first planning and zoning meeting, I started sending emails to the government saying, "Hey, I used to work in finance. I really don't think you understand who this private equity company is. They're bleeding cash. Their shareholders are trying to sue them. Like, this is not a good company. And this isn't a tech company building their own data center. This is a private equity company building out space they hope to lease out." And the reason that's terrible is because if you started going bankrupt and you owned some houses and leased some other houses, you would probably start breaking leases before you would start selling houses. And that's exactly what's going to happen with all of this leased data center space is if quantum computing, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole because I can opine on quantum computing forever, but basically all computers are programmed in ones and zeros. So a computer has to make a decision, one or zero, right? Quantum computers, their qubits can be a one and a zero. And so that is going to fundamentally transform data science and AI as we know it. And when that happens, you won't need these massive data centers because you'll be able to do the same number of calculations it takes racks and racks and racks of ones and zeros to do on a little wafer that can say, what if it's a one and a zero? And it can do much different simulations. And so within the next several years, we're going to be there. And if we build all these stupid data centers between now and then, most of them are going to be obsolete by the time they're finished. And yeah, and so I just started showing up saying, hey, if you want to benefit from the data center boom, open a welding school, open a cybersecurity school, open a trade school that can service these data centers, but we don't need to sell out to data centers. That's 600 acres of land. And like to put it in context, 600 acres is the size of Disneyland. And I don't mean the park Disneyland, I mean the entire thing. Like all the hotels, all the parking lots, California Adventure, the whole Disneyland. That's the size that this development is going to be. And it's just crazy. And so they basically ignored me when I started emailing them. I showed up at meetings. And then I had this video go viral. So I didn't actually post this video myself. There's a coalition here called No Desert Data Centers that's kind of trying, because we have the same developer trying to build another data center 25 miles away in South Tucson. So yeah. And this video went viral of me basically speaking about the issues with this project. And I was kind of coerced into running. No, I shouldn't say coerced, but people started approaching me saying,
this is a
hey,
safe space.
Yeah, there are 4 town council seats and a mayor seat open in this election. And one of the biggest issues we have in politics is finding qualified people to run for office.
Yeah. You were told, congrats on your video and all your years of expertise. You're now qualified for one of these 4 seats. How did you get hooked up with our pals at Run for Something? Was that when you did they kind of suss you out, or did you go, okay, if I'm going to do this, I need the scaffolding to do this, right?
Yeah, no, we're really lucky in Arizona in that the culmination of all of the different societal issues we're seeing, whether it be data centers, we also have a detention facility that is going into our town.
Awesome.
So we are kind of the epitome of the small town being exploited by special interests, right? And so there are a lot of other young candidates also running for office. And so I have some people that help with kind of operations and logistics for the campaign. And they had mentioned Run for Something. And they were like, hey, we don't want to ask you how old you are, but you seem younger than most of our candidates.
If you could just give me like a date range, that would be great.
Yeah. They were like, were you
outstanding.
born in 1985 or earlier? And I was like, well, not or earlier, but
yeah. If you stop right there, that's outstanding. That makes me so happy. It's amazing. Yeah, man. Then once they get their hands on you, it's a real. They don't mess around.
Yeah.
And now you got a T-shirt and everything, which is amazing, by the way. What has been the response from that video to signing up to run to, again, like you said, it's already getting hot there. Everybody's dealing with water issues there. We got everything from the Colorado River issues. I was in Los Angeles for a long time. It's like you said, all of the things.
Yeah.
How has your 60,000, you said, person town been activated in any way behind your campaign, behind this issue, among the myriad other things going on?
Yeah, so politics in our town are kind of dirty. I'm not gonna lie. What is crazy is that because this town has not even been an incorporated town for 50 years yet. Next year is actually our 50th anniversary. So our town
Wow.
wasn't incorporated until 1977, and it has been owned and run by the same four wealthy families for basically the entire time the town has existed. One of those families is our current mayor. And so one of my hesitations with running is that you can probably tell I have pink and purple hair. I am covered in tattoos. Let me get those in there.
They look awesome. I'm
And
into it.
so when people started trying to recruit me to run, I was like, first of all, I'm definitely not a politician. I'm very unfiltered. It's just kind of I live at this nexus of autism and ADHD where I'm very honest and unfiltered. Um, and our town skews older. So we have a lot of retired people here. And so I just asked people when they were asking me to run, I was like, how are people going to respond to me? Like,
Have we met?
I'm not going
Right.
to change me. I'm not
Right.
going to change my hair. And what's been really fascinating is that not only have I had insane amounts of support, but from both sides of the aisle. And I actually I went canvassing with a reporter a couple days ago because they're working on a story about our town and me running and all of this. And we intentionally knocked on pretty conservative doors. And what you will find is that people hate data centers for all kinds of reasons. Whether it's, not in my backyard, whether it's there's this whole like don't California my Arizona thing. And what's funny is that like some people interpret building data centers here as doing that, right? Because they're basically serving these billionaires in Silicon Valley. I am of the opinion that neither political party right now is really serving working people. Unfortunately, they've both been overtaken by wealthy individuals, companies, structures, just for different reasons, right? And so one of the things that really frustrated me about Democrats, and I've been a registered Democrat for a long time, was that we lost the working class.
Yeah.
We used to be the party of unions, of working people, of the everyman, and all of a sudden Democrats got very intellectual, got very kind of like somewhat condescending. I think there was this tone during 2024 that was very much like, oh my God, how could anybody vote for that guy? And you're never going to reach people with that attitude, right? And so I tend to be somebody who I'm very curious. So if somebody says they believe something, I'll get stuck at somebody's door when I'm canvassing for like 20 minutes because I just really want to dissect how they feel about the world. And so the response has been really great. And even with like the detention facility, what I have found is that, if you can ask people to right now set aside immigration politics, right? Because when I'm talking to more conservative voters, we're probably not going to agree there. But
Sure.
the point of town council is to decide, do we want a detention facility in our town? And more broadly, do we want a private prison at all in our town? And if I can, and usually when people are reasonable, you can get them to set aside the politics of it and talk about the actual data. Because I'm a data scientist, right? I love data. And if you start explaining to them, private prisons in general are more expensive, they cost the state more money, they're less effective. It's easier to get drugs in a private prison than it is to get them on the street. They are not in the business of rehabilitating people, they're in the business of keeping people incarcerated because that's how they make their money. And once I start talking to voters about that, they're like, oh, yeah, I don't want a private prison in my town, no matter what it's for. And so, I became a financial advisor right before the financial crisis. I became a stockbroker in 2025. I was only 20. I applied for the wrong job. I had no idea what I was doing. But I kind of had to talk people off ledges, like people are watching their 401k drop 60%, and you have to figure out what is important to them and how to use that to help explain the world and help them make better choices. And I feel like politics is very similar, and that, you have to talk to people about like what is important in your life, because social media algorithms are programmed to show you the most extreme sound bites of the most extreme opinions of the most extreme ends of the political spectrum. We have this in tech, we say enragement is engagement. And so basically, anytime you open your phone, it's going to piss you off.
Hmm.
That's what it does. Because the
Yep.
more pissed off you get, the more time you'll spend on the internet arguing with your neighbors, people you don't know. So, yeah, I mean, I think I've been surprised at how much people that I would think would not inherently support someone that looks like I do, that thinks like I do. But it seems like people really crave authenticity right now. And
Yeah, there's not a lot
and
of
I
that out there.
Yeah, yeah, and so I think the fact that I'm unfiltered, the fact that I'm not one to let someone spread misinformation and not say something about it. And so one of the things that I hear as I knock on doors and people already know who I am, which is bizarre, by the way. Like, if you've never experienced
Mm-hmm.
this, it's weird when people know you and you don't know them. It's
Mm-hmm.
great. But yeah, but no, I think like one of the things I hear about me a lot is, "Oh, this is Jackie and she doesn't suffer fools." Like,
Great. Put it on a fucking poster, man. Like
yeah.
that's where
Well,
we
like, I got
are.
talked out of our last town council meeting because our mayor was like, "Oh, we visited a bunch of data centers up in Phoenix and they're not loud at all." And I was like, "Those are 25 megawatts. You're trying to build one here that's 1,500 megawatts." And so I'm yelling out from the audience, and you're not allowed to do that at our town council meetings.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, South Tucson was so refreshing because I went down to South Tucson, and it's a back and forth between the audience and the council. They open it
Mm-hmm.
up for questions. They want to have ours. They set aside 30 minutes at the beginning of the meeting, which
Oh
means
yeah.
only 10 people get to speak at any meeting. And if you start talking, they've started bringing in like half a dozen, 10 cops. They will literally have the police pull you out of the town
And
council
that's how
meeting if
most
you
of the
say
places
anything.
are. That's it. It's like 3 minutes. It sounds like you guys get 3 minutes. That's an extravagance.
Yeah.
In a lot of places, it's 1 to 2, and you're just like, what the fuck are we doing here, man?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the question time model, as it were, is helpful for sure. What are your, besides getting elected in a unique town, of which I get it. Again, I'm in Colonial Williamsburg. We've got a very wealthy and really collaborative and thoughtful university. 10 yards that way, what is effectively an open air museum here. It's very old. It's complicated. We don't have a lot of property taxes at all because it's basically the Colonial Williamsburg Foundation, the College William and Mary, and a bunch of 400-year-old churches. So when you're like, where do we get the funding for fucking bike lanes? The answer is like, there isn't any. So,
Yeah.
it's, you have to know what you're dealing with. And it sounds like you really know your town and what you're dealing with, which is really helpful. Context is really helpful.
Yeah.
There's transferable strategies and maybe tactics from city to city and town to town, municipalities, and obviously we have 50 different states and all that and territories. But what do you feel like are sort of the known obstacles over the next year or so of like actually trying to not just be the party of no, as they say, for this particular data center, because more will come,
Yeah.
but to actually representing, like you said, those 60,000 folks in a way that they feel like, great, she's unfiltered for me now. Like that's what I
Yeah.
was looking for.
Yeah, I think it's continuing to talk. And I think, we're 60,000 people in the incorporated town. One of the issues that we have here is that we have a massive unincorporated area. And
Hmm.
those people are directly impacted by all of the decisions that the
Sure.
town makes, but they don't get to vote.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get a say. And
America,
so,
taxation without
yeah,
representation. That's what we do best.
yeah, yeah, and so, and I used to be one of those residents. So I live in a house that's in a subdivision now so that my kids could, get to school because it was taking me 20 minutes each way to drive them to the bus and back. But, my ranch, I have 40 acres that's out in unincorporated Pinal County, which is the next county north. And our town also covers two different counties, which is also great. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think it's to continue to have conversations. So I'm big on office hours.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting next week. I'm going to start having office hours myself as a candidate. So,
Mm.
people can actually come, ask questions, meet me. Our mayor, our incumbent mayor, he did not collect a single signature on his own nomination petitions. He was not out canvassing. He was not out knocking doors. And that's the real issue, is that I think one of the issues we have in our government specifically is that our government is not representative of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And, nationally, statewide, you could say that just about anywhere. When you have a government that skews over 60, extremely white, extremely wealthy, the just like the ability to understand the struggles of everyday people is just non-existent. I mean, we have a stock market that's gone up, 30% in the last year and a half, but 87% of Americans don't own stocks. And, the stock market is not the economy. In our town, like, very few people here own stocks. They're
Mm-hmm.
struggling with $5 gas. They're struggling with $8 eggs. They're, so I think I have the benefit of the fact that I was homeless when I was 19.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up very, very poor. I grew up in the Payless sneakers that left the marks on the gym floors. And so I still remember, I still, I see people. And that, I think that's the other thing, is that, if we try to dissect the Donald Trump phenomena, and I think that rather than being condescending about how anybody could vote for that guy, I totally understand why people voted for that guy. Because when you can't pay your bills, and you're being told the reason you can't pay your bills, the reason that life is so hard for you, is because Democrats and Republicans just can't get along, and it's broken, and it's going to stay broken, and there's nothing you can do about it. And somebody comes in and they're like, well, why don't we burn it all to the ground? Like, quite frankly, that's pretty compelling. And I think one thing he does is he makes people feel seen. And whether that's authentic or not, whether he actually understands their struggles, and obviously, my opinion is he probably doesn't, it doesn't matter. If you make people feel seen and you say, hey, I see that, the middle class has basically been destroyed over the last 40, 50 years,
Mm-hmm.
that wage inflation has not kept up with price inflation. We shouldn't, having a country where there are 950 billionaires is not sustainable. It just isn't. And so I think continuing to talk to people, and I had this great experience several months ago. I was driving home from California. I had driven out to Vegas for something, or Vegas actually, and I was coming back. And there's one road that goes through these mountains in Arizona when you're about an hour from Phoenix. And there was a crash, and the whole road got shut down for 4.5 hours. And we were just stuck. So everybody got out of their cars and we started talking to each other. And it's beautiful. It's dark. It's like 12 o'clock, midnight.
Mm-hmm.
The stars are all visible because there's not a
Oh, yeah.
city for 50 miles in either direction. And I start talking to this truck driver behind me, and we have this like 2 hour long conversation. At the end of it, he said, I don't agree with 90% of anything you just said, but this was such a nice conversation to have. And I said, I feel like that's America right now, is we all went into our houses because we couldn't breathe on each other during COVID, and nobody came back out.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
No,
stopped
I'm with you. It's
we
like
stopped talking to each other. We don't share reality. Like, everybody can curate through their phone the exact version of reality that they want, that will tell them exactly what they believe, the way they believe it, nothing to ever question your beliefs, in a neutral way where you're not just arguing with other people on the internet.
and most of which has very little to do with the things your town council can represent you on or affect in any way. 95% of what you see up there. And that's why I love this idea of, the way you seem to be canvassing, which is asking people, what do you care about? What's affecting you? That is one of my favorite parts of knocking on doors. I always tell people, actually, you're not the one that should be doing most of the talking. It's like, just tell them who you are so they feel safe. And then
Yeah.
you'd be amazed at what people will tell you about what's affecting them right now on a Saturday morning or an evening or whatever it is, because that's the times we're in, and that's how you're going to really understand how to represent folks if you're lucky enough to get elected.
So our elections are also one of the biggest issues that I've run up against. Is our elections are in July. So we have Arizona does their local, well, Marana does its local elections during the primary. And that's so that if one of the seats doesn't get a majority, it goes to runoff, which almost never happens. But it's a mid-cycle election. It's during the primaries. And people don't really know what town council does. So, and I am one of those people, or I was
Sure.
until, 6 months ago, and that,
Sure.
we spend a lot of time arguing over state and national politics when town council, local politics is what directly affects your life, like
Hmm.
zoning
Hmm.
and planning and, like funding and, infrastructure. And so, and that's the other thing is I hear the same three things at every door I knock on, like without fail. And it's nothing that the first one is we hate the data center. The
Hmm.
second one is urban sprawl because our tax base here is concentrated in construction tax.
Hmm.
To your point earlier about how are we going to build another bike lane, our answer is to build another car wash. We have so many freaking car washes in this town, and nobody knows why. And it's
Right.
become like the running joke of the town is like, how many car washes do you actually need? Because there's one on like every corner in a state that has no water.
Hmm.
And it's because without the impact fees, without the construction, constant construction, we don't have a tax base.
Sure.
And the really unfortunate thing and risky thing about that is that when we have the economic pullback that we all know is coming, construction tax, construction stops when the economy gets bad and retail spending stops. So we are screwed,
Hmm.
like very
Hmm.
screwed.
You know who's not going to
Um,
the car wash? Everybody.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, I think we're at a point in this town where talking to people, they're like the urban sprawl, because we've built probably 5,000 new houses in the last 10 years here,
Hmm.
but we didn't invest in jobs for those people. We don't
Right.
have a college or university
Or like you
satellite
said, a
campus in
welding
our
school
town.
or apprentice training, any of that stuff.
Yep. None of that here. And what's crazy about that is that we actually do have a high school that has a decent trades program. There's just nowhere to go from
Oh,
there.
it's like it is one of our greatest missed opportunities that is both hyper local and national. Is just like
Yeah.
truly giving these folks nowhere to go in general, but these are people who are interested and want to do this. And by the way, those are like better jobs, no question. You know, they're
Yeah.
not going anywhere. Um,
Like
so
welding
yeah, I
is
mean
one of the
welding,
most in-demand skilled trades right now because every rack that goes into a data center, all the components have to be welded into that rack.
sure.
And there just are not enough welders here right now. And so some of that work is being done outside the country, and
Hmm.
that's what I was trying to tell the town is I was like, you could benefit from the AI boom without
In a
subjecting
totally
yourself to the
different way.
AI bust.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. You could train a million new electricians and become the hotbed for that because like there isn't a single electrician I've spoke to who isn't like I am booked every day forever because there's
Yeah.
nobody. It's crazy.
Yep.
All right, give me an example of one really like measurably positive outcome that comes from your election in the first year or so. Something you can actually feel, something you can actually control.
So 2 years ago, when unbeknownst to us, the town council started thinking about writing or thinking about approving data centers in the town, they wrote this ordinance. And it was basically to create they've positioned it as we were so forward thinking and like other towns don't even have data center ordinances, and it's 10 pages long, and it spends more time talking about what the data center building should look like than actually regulating how they operate and mitigating risk and harm to the town. So, one of the first priorities that I have is I hope we can stop the data center project. I
Hmm.
really do. I think it's a horrible idea for our town. If we can, I would love to. Being realistic that that may not be an opportunity. And I sued the town over it because we collected almost 3,000 signatures to refer it to the ballot for the zoning,
Hmm.
and the town threw the signatures out on a technicality. So I sued the town for throwing the signatures out. If we can't, between this and the detention facility, I think we need stronger ordinances that actually mitigate harm. So that 10-page ordinance needs to be about 100 pages long. It needs to quantify and qualify what an emergency is. It needs to measure, because our ordinance only measures audible sound. And what we're finding out is that audible sound is not the issue with these data centers. It's infrasound, which is this
Hmm.
very low frequency sound that you can't hear, but you can feel it. And
Hmm.
it's not a decibel issue, it's a tonal issue. And so I think bringing in partners from University of Arizona, which is just down the road in Tucson, from other local community colleges, from think tanks, from engineering firms to do an actual fully researched assessment based on hyperscale data centers. Because the other issue is that they went and visited a bunch of regular low density data centers. So it's kind of like saying, like, well, based on this, how this Toyota Camry runs, I wrote an ordinance for how this aircraft carrier is going to operate.
Right.
It's like, they just, and it's hard.
Just so
Scale is
disingenuous.
hard.
Totally.
Yeah, like scale is a very hard thing to understand. And so yeah, I think one of my first priorities is to amend the ordinance here to actually mitigate harm. And then another priority is immediately starting to meet with the unincorporated residents in town, because that has been one of the most frustrating things for them and myself. Is everything this town does impacts them. But starting probably about 20 years ago, according to longtime residents, the town just stopped wanting to hear anything they had to say. And that's not sustainable, because rural communities are more sensitive to environmental change because they more directly depend on natural resources. So I have a well out at my ranch. I am seriously concerned about groundwater.
Sure.
Well, and what's crazy here too is that I live in a subdivision that's got like hundreds and hundreds of houses in it. This entire subdivision is on one giant well. And I don't know how many people actually know that here. So yeah, I think starting to actually listen to people, establishing regular office hours to make sure that we're getting feedback, and continuing to talk to people who disagree with me. Like, I want to talk. It's great to be in a room full of Democrats who all will think I'm wonderful and agree with me and think everything I say is brilliant. I get a lot more constructive ideas from being in a room full of people who don't agree with me. And it's not easy and it's not always fun, but it's important to show up and to actually care.
Do you want to get elected or do you not want to get elected? We categorically don't endorse any specific party, person, company, whatever. We really took to note after 2024 this great little quote by Representative AOC. We can't just be right, we have to be effective. And that is pretty broadly and specifically applicable to a lot of towns and states and issues. And it's great to be an idealist and hear people say, fuck yeah. And it's another one to be like, yeah, but you don't have the votes to do that. I appreciate that. I really do. Where can the people find you and support your campaign?
Yeah, so vote for Jackie, FOR, and then Jackie, like it's on my shirt. Move that out of the way. .com is my campaign website. formorana.com is the website for myself, and I'm running as part of a group of 4 candidates. So
nice.
We're all first-time candidates. Look, I think, especially thinking about run for something, one of the most important things that we all could be doing right now is finding and supporting better candidates for public office. It's not easy to run. It's not cheap. If you're going to do it right, it's not cheap. I work in tech, so I make a decent amount of money now, and taking the last 6 months off to do this has cost a fortune. And so I think the more we can do to find qualified candidates, to enable them to run, to raise money for them, to donate to their campaigns, we need younger people running for office. Like, if you need to know why we need younger people running for office, go watch the hearing where Congress questioned the CEO of TikTok. It is one of the most horrific examples of people making laws that they don't understand. And we had the same thing happen at our Planning and Zoning Commission when we were saying, hey, this ordinance says they can only run their generators in times of emergency, but you don't actually say what constitutes an emergency. And their lawyer just stood up and said, not getting enough power from the grid is an emergency. Our grid can't provide that power right now. They're going to be running on generators for at least the first couple years. And one of the Planning and Zoning guys, who was old enough to be my father or grandfather, did this. Y'all got one of these, don't you? And he holds up his phone and he says, those generators don't come on, your phone doesn't work. And literally everybody in the audience under 75 yelled, that's not how that works. And So, I mean, we really we have people in power who are making laws that they will not be alive to realize the impact of.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, with age comes wisdom. There are plenty of people out there who are 80 who can keep up with me cognitively, energy wise, no more than I do. That is absolutely a thing. There are also just a lot of people who end up running for office after they retire because they don't have a lot better to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so when a government is not representative of the people, when there aren't people in government who understand STEM, like we need more scientists, we need more engineers, we need more teachers, we need people in government who actually understand the things that they're regulating. And we really, especially in smaller communities like ours, we don't have that. And
Sure.
so all I would love to do is encourage more candidates who are qualified to run for office. I try to take positives away from what's happened politically the last several years, right? And I think one thing the Donald Trump phenomena tells us is that people aren't voting for the person. Some of them are. People are voting for the policies. And I met a Black family from the south side of Chicago who lives in our town now, Trump voters. And what the dad said to me that really resonated with me is he said, I voted for the dude because even if some of the stuff he says is crazy, he's at least going to try to do it. And at least he's somebody who will do what he says he's going to do. And I think if you can get past your initial reaction to that, to thinking about it, what that means for me is that as a purple and pink haired tattooed younger woman, people are not responding to how I look. Some of them think I'm cool, but they're responding to what I'm saying. They're responding to me understanding the issues that impact their everyday lives and being able to talk to them on their level about the things they care about.
Sure.
And so maybe we've gotten past the point in politics where everybody expects you to be a perfect, upper middle class, white, married Christian. Like there used to be this whole litmus test for becoming a political candidate. And if you didn't check off all of these boxes, don't even consider it. And I think we've gotten past that. And I think that it's safer for candidates who are not mainstream to run than they think. So if you're out there, if you want to run, if you want somebody to commiserate with about how fun it is, I think we need to be asking ourselves where to find better candidates, because having to choose between two different dog turds and decide which one smells the least bad has been my experience voting for years, and I hate it.
And now that's where we are. But I really appreciate that perspective. If you want to find somewhere to run, go to runforwhat.net, I believe. You can drop in your address and see what offices are available, but also Jackie and candidates like her are actually everywhere. I always tell Amanda my favorite email, which is not a phrase I use lightly, is the one she sends every week. It's just like good news about incredible candidates like you all over the country. And you're just like, this is amazing. These people are doing the thing. Thank you so much for your time. Really, really, really appreciate it. Please keep it up. Again, you're not trying to be a Luddite about this. You're trying to say, I have informed perspective, and I'm willing to say things that other folks aren't. And maybe we need to do a little more of that. So thank you, Jackie.
Well, thank you for the opportunity and for having me.
That's it. You can read our critically acclaimed newsletter and get notified about new podcast conversations at importantnotimportant.com. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks for giving a shit.